Let's start, guys. Very good evening, all of you. Let's start with today's session. Now, in yesterday's session, we saw some object-oriented programming concepts like class, object, abstraction, encapsulation, and all. Then we continued with features of Java, in which we saw Java is object-oriented programming language. Right? Java is a true object-oriented programming language. Now, continuing with that, one or two more features of Java we'll see, and then we will dive into first Java program. Okay. Now, few more features in that. The next one is Java is robust and secure. Now, why we should say Java is robust and secure? That I'll try to explain. In Java, strict compile time as well as strict runtime checking is done. Getting? Because Java is a two-step activity. I hope you know. In the past session I've shown you that first we have to compile Java code. We write a Java program, then we give it to the Java compiler, and Java compiler will check the syntaxes. If there is syntax error, it will tell you. No, so it will convert it into a bytecode that is called as a Java executable. And then that bytecode you give it to the Java interpreter. So when the interpretation is going on, your bytecode is getting interpreted. Bytecode is getting converted line by line into machine code and then given to the underlying machine for execution. So that activity is called as runtime. And when your Java code is getting compiled into bytecode, that is called as compile time. So both times are there in case of Java programming, compile time also and runtime. So during compile time, okay, if there is an error, that is also checked, and runtime also error, that is also checked. So that is Java does strict compile time and strict runtime checking of the data types. Now I'll support this with an example, but just remember in Java strict compile time and runtime type checking is done, or data type checking. Now example of compile time I'll tell you. If suppose in Java you are creating a variable, okay, of one type, and you are trying to assign some value which is of incompatible type, it will not automatically cast it or convert it, which may happen in some languages. Getting? Example like in C, suppose, but now latest C compilers are also robust now. If suppose you have declared integer I, okay, and to I, if you assign 4.5, which is double, you understanding, guys? 4.5 is double value, and that double, if you are assigning it to integer, in language like C or C++, what happens is it doesn't give any error. This 0.5 is lost. That 0.5 gets lost, and that 4 is getting saved in I, because I is integer. So actually 4.5 is wider, and you are trying to store it in a narrow value. 4.5 is a wider value, and you are trying to store it in a narrow value. So there will be loss of something. Some loss can happen as the wider value is getting stored in the narrow value. Some loss can happen. So in some languages, automatic loss takes place and then it stores it. Like 4.5 double, implicitly it will convert it to integer and store. But the same thing if you do it in Java, okay? If you're same thing doing in Java, it will give an error. It will say possible loss of precision. And then it will say that found double required integer. Such error come, and this error checking is done at the time of compilation, and that's the reason we should say it is a robust language. Okay, means it will not automatically lose the value. You understanding? I hope you are understanding. But in Java, if you have double variable and to that if you are assigning an integer, no problem. Why? Because double is already a wider value, no? And in wider, when you're storing narrow, no problem. No loss is going to happen. But a wider value you're storing in a narrow value. Getting? 4.5 is a wider and you're storing in narrow. There is a chance of loss. And therefore, it gives a error. It will give you a complaint. Getting? I hope you are understanding. In many situations will come, like if in Java you are declaring a variable of type byte. Now Java is having a data type byte, and to byte, if you give some value which is not in a byte limit, now 102034, this is a big number which cannot fit in byte. Getting? So it is integer and you are trying to store it in byte. So byte means 1 byte and this is 4 byte. So 4 byte cannot fit in 1 byte. It will again give the same error. See, possible loss of precision, found integer, required byte. Getting? So this checking, which is done at the time of compilation, contributes to robustness of the language. Agreed? See here. In short, I've just tried to explain it. I've tried to support the compile time type checking. See, I've created a variable integer. To that I'm assigning double, and when you do this in Java, it won't get compiled. During compilation only it will generate an error, and the error is possible loss of precision, found double, required integer. Getting? So this checking which is happening at compile time makes the language robust. Okay, now even it does runtime type checking also. You understanding, guys? Runtime type checking. Now I told you what is compile time and runtime. Compile time means when your Java code is getting converted to byte code, and runtime means when the byte code is converted into machine code line by line. So that is runtime, and then it's given to the underlying hardware for execution. Now during runtime also the checking is done. Okay, for that too I'll give you an example. I'll support that with an example. Okay, now just remember in Java, when you create an object of any class, like assume that employee is a class and E is a variable of that class. E is a variable of that class employee. Okay, like yesterday only I told you, objects act like variable and class acts like data type. So employee is a data type and E is the variable of that data type. Okay, so employee is a class and E is a variable of that class, or employee is a data type and E is the variable of that data type. Okay, but what the thing is in Java, whenever you create an object, it is just a reference variable, exactly like pointer. Okay, see, understand the concept what I'm telling. Whenever you write EMP E in Python, in Java concept, that employee E when you do, so E is an object, no doubt. It is an object of employee class. Employee is a data type. E is a variable of that data type. But only a reference variable is created. Getting? On the stack part. On stack, that reference variable is created. Actual copy of that employee class is not created. You understanding? Now, if suppose that employee is having properties like employee number, name, salary, joining date, so for them the memory is not yet allocated. Only for E the memory is allocated, which is just to store the reference. You understanding? Only that E is created on the stack. That is the reference variable. Right? Now, in Java, unless and until you write new employee, clear? Hear carefully, and then if you have doubts, you can ask me. First, hear what I am telling. Okay? Now, till you don't write new, see, new is an operator in Java. So, till you are not using new, a copy of this employee won't get created. Okay, after that one constructor is called. Now you'll say what is a constructor? We'll come to it, don't worry. When we'll come to actual object-oriented programming. Just remember, a constructor is called and a copy of that employee class is created because of this new. That will be done on the heap. Clear? So on the heap, it will allocate memory for that one employee. So possible in that there is employee number, then there is employee name. So as much memory is needed for that number, that name, that salary, that much is allocated. And then the reference of that object comes in E. You understanding? So when you say new, then only the copy of that employee is created on heap. Means whatever properties of that employee class are there, like number is there, name is there, salary is there, memory allocated on the heap. The reference come in it. Who? E. Means according to Java, the object itself contains the reference. You understanding? Means in Java, the object only acts like a pointer. You can think like that. But now someone may say like you're saying the contradictory statement. Somewhere in the past session you said like in Java there is no pointer. And now you're saying that object is containing the reference. I will tell you in detail. Actually, it is not a direct address. There is something in between also. In between there is a hash table. Actually, the recording in hash table is done and then we get the hash entry. But okay, that much part for time being I have kept skip. I have just said the copy is created on heap. The reference come in E and now you can access its methods. Like suppose now I call E dot get salary. Some method is there, get salary. Method means function. Yesterday I told you, functions means those who perform some logic on the data of that object. That object's data is getting accessed or manipulated within that method. So I am calling that method for that object, E dot get sal. So I am asking that return the salary of that E object. Getting? So now it is legal that you first created a reference variable, then you created a copy, and then you called the method. But suppose by mistake you forgot to do this part. Clear? Understand carefully what I am saying. You just created employee E. Right? Means you just created a reference variable and directly you called e.getSal. Getting? So is the program syntactically correct? Is there anything syntactically wrong? Is the program having any syntactic mistake? EMPE semicolon e.getSal semicolon. Is there any syntax problem?
Yes, sir.
Is there any syntax problem? Yes, you are saying. What is the syntax problem? Yes or no? Clear? Syntactically, is there any mistake? I've created a reference variable E of employee. You want to say here you didn't wrote star or something, but that convention only is not there in Java. Getting? You don't have to write star and all. Directly you create a variable of that type. So E is an object of employee. In E, what is going to come? The reference of that employee copy. Okay. But what happened is you created the variable properly. You called the method also properly. The program is syntactically correct. Getting? Therefore, there is no problem coming at the time of compilation. Compiler doesn't complain. Compiler say everything is fine. You have created an object, you are accessing the method. But at runtime, during runtime, that is at the time of interpretation, getting interpretation time, when it tries to access this method getSal through E, it will generate an error. Why? Because in E, what is not there only? Can you tell me? As you have not done this line, this statement you have not written. In E, what is not there only? Reference. Is there a reference of this object? Is this object created? Will it be only this thing, E and a reference variable? Is the copy created on the heap?
No.
No, because you didn't wrote E equal to new employee. As you didn't wrote new EMP, the copy is only not created on heap. So how it will have a reference, right? So as there is no reference here, there is a null value, right? And you are accessing E dot get sal. Same thing if you try to do it in C++ or C, there will be in C++ also an error is generated. Getting? It's called as a stack overflow. No, it's not a stack overflow error. We call it as core dump error. I hope you might have seen that core dump error. Getting? In C++ you might have encountered. So E is not only having the reference, how it is legal to call the method. Can we call that get sal, which is going to do the operation on the data of that employee? Means it is going to do some calculations and going to return you some value. Can it do when the object is only not having any memory? Getting? So here at runtime, it will throw an exception called as null pointer exception. Now null pointer exception is also one type of class in Java, and it is runtime generating that error. Now how to handle it, there is a separate chapter, just remember. So it throws what? Null pointer exception. And now this null pointer exception is raised at runtime. So that is also contributing to the robustness of your code. It is not going ahead of your program. It's not going to run anything after it, because in E, what is not there only? Reference. So is it legal to access it? It is like in real life when yet the baby is not born only. So can you file an income tax for that baby? Can you purchase shares for that baby? Can you purchase some gold for that baby where that baby is not yet born only? Getting? So it's like that. You are doing the operation on that object, but the object is not created only. You got it? Means you have just created the reference variable, but in that yet the reference of your object not stored only, because the object is not allocated memory. Object will get memory only when you will do new. You understanding? Unless and until you use new, the object won't get memory. Agreed? So that is contributing to which factor? Runtime factor. Clear? See here. I wrote EMPE and directly I wrote E dot get sal. What I forgot to do between these two lines? Yes, guys. What I forgot to do between these two lines?
To call the object. Sorry. To give a value to E.
To give memory to it. You forgot to do allocation of memory. In short, you forgot to allocate memory for that object. And how do we do allocation? Just now I said, in Java, allocation can be done only by new. Kidding? See here, I wrote new EMP round bracket. So when you'll call new, you will use this operator new, it will allocate memory which is needed for that employee. So if that employee data members are number, name, salary, so it will allocate memory for number, name, salary, and then the reference will come in this E. But we didn't do only this activity. No? Directly we wrote E dot get sal. You understood or no? Clear? And in this situation, it generates a null pointer exception. It's a runtime error. Getting? But because of this, it will not allow you to go ahead. Your program won't go only further. Further execution cannot be done because of this error. So this is also contributing to the robustness of your language. Getting? So I hope both the points are clear to you. Right or no? Strict compile time and strict runtime checking is done. Yes, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay? See here. Accessing method without object instantiation. When a null pointer is occurring, whenever you are accessing the method of an object, for that object I am calling that method. but you're calling it without the object instantiation. Instantiation means creating copy. And we have not created yet copy. Is the copy of that employee created yet? No. Copy will be created only by calling new. You're getting or no? Clear? I hope you got it. So which line I forgot to write between these two lines? This one. E equal to new EMP. So it will create a copy of employee on HIP. The reference will get stored in E, and now you are allowed to call the method. Agreed? So this is the point which is contributing to robustness. Okay? Then next is, in Java, automatic garbage collection is done. Therefore, chances of memory leak is not there. Means in Java, memory leaks can never happen. Because like C or like C++, you don't have to release the memory explicitly. You understanding? Automatic garbage collection, that is no need to release memory explicitly. Okay, that too I'll explain you with the diagram. I'll show you how the thing is. Suppose you have created this employee variable E. Is it yet a object or it is just a object reference? Yet the object is not instantiated, isn't it, guys? Yet the copy is not created. Okay, only the reference is created, right? Now I wrote E equal to new employee. Okay, one copy is created and the reference has come in E. This is your stack part. On the stack, the reference variable is, and the actual object will get memory on the heap part. So here E is there. Okay, a reference variable. New EMP, when I write, it creates a copy of that employee. One employee copy, which will have employee number, name, salary, joining date, whatever. As many properties you have put in that employee class while creating that employee class. The object is created and now the reference is stored here. Okay. Now after some time, I'm again creating a new object. Getting, guys? Of the same class, and I'm storing the reference in E. I hope all of you are hearing me, those who have joined. So E equal to new EMP. Okay, so it is going to create again a new employee object, one more employee object, same copy. Again it will allocate memory for number, for name, for salary, for joining date, as many properties are there. Again a new copy of that employee on HIP. The reference of this new copy is returned. It is stored here. Is the old reference lost? Here whatever the old reference is gone. Yes or no, guys? The old reference is lost and the new reference is kept there. But when the old reference is lost, this memory now you cannot access it. Isn't it? Because
Yes.
you don't have a address of it, how you can access it? You cannot access. But don't worry that it is not put in a free list, which was happening in C++. You remember in C++ the same situation. But in C++, in between we were supposed to call whom? Delete E. Meaning before allocating next memory, please release this old memory. Means give to the system this memory back. And tell the system, now I don't want, you can give it to someone else. Means you can reutilize it. Put it in the free list. Getting? But you have to inform. No need to do that in Java. The moment this new object reference come, the old object reference gone, automatic the reference count of this object is decreased. It maintains a reference count. Internally for every object the reference count is maintained. And the reference count is decreased. Every time when the reference is lost, the ref count is decreased. Now as this object reference count is 0, okay, this will be put into the garbage list. But you'll say how it is automatic. So there is one garbage collector. Hear carefully. You can force also, means you can explicitly also call. But This garbage collector, you can just remember garbage collector is a low priority thread. Means it is a background process which your Java virtual machine periodically calls it. Periodically means you got after every fixed interval. After every fixed interval. What is called the garbage collector. Getting? So garbage collector is scheduled. Scheduled means it is told that after every this much time you come and check in the memory whose ref count has become 0. Getting? It is very much same like if you go to big malls, if you go to hospitals, if you go to theaters. So there is a housekeeping team, right? But does that housekeeping team come immediately when you create a garbage? Like you're watching the movie and you drop a popcorn there or any wrappers of ice cream and all that garbage you create in the hall. But immediately they don't come. They are scheduled. When the movie is over, then the team will come, they'll clean. Again, next schedule will be when next movie will get over, they'll come. Same. In your Java system also, this garbage collector is a background process and it is called periodically. Periodically means after every fixed interval. And what this garbage collector does, checks whether there are objects whose ref count has become 0. If there is, it will put it into free list. You don't have to explicitly inform by calling delete E. Such thing is not needed only in Java. Means in Java there is no delete operator only, which was there in C++. Getting? So only new, if you allocate new memory, the reference come, the old lost, don't worry. Though the old is lost, that object will be put into the free list. And who will put it into free list? Who is going to put it in the free list? Garbage collector. Getting? And that garbage collector is called, is it called immediately? The moment the object reference is lost, immediately that garbage collector is called. The moment the object reference means any object whose reference has become 0, ref count 0. So immediately called to put it into free list, or is it scheduled?
Scheduled.
Clear? After every fixed interval, the interval is decided. So after every fixed interval, the garbage collector is called. And what the garbage collector will do, it will check in the memory all those objects whose ref count has become 0. And those objects whose ref count is 0, it will put it into free list. And those who go in free list, can we reutilize that memory? Is the memory again available for reutilization?
No.
No. As the ref count has become 0, so is the garbage collector
Yes,
going to put that? So that's what I am asking. If the garbage collector finds that this object ref count has become 0, so it will put it into free list. So those who go in the free list, is that memory available for reallocation?
Yes, yes.
Yes or no? It is available for reallocation. Means system can give that memory to someone else because it's already put into which list? Free list. Getting? But is the programmer supposed to inform that please put this in free list?
No.
Don't have to bother. Clear? You don't have to bother. Why? Because periodically what is getting called? Garbage collector. And that garbage collector is doing the work. You don't worry. Garbage collector will do what work? Check all the objects whose ref count has become 0. So I hope you got it. So is this also making the language more robust language? Means because of this, we don't have to worry about releasing the memory. So that we don't have to worry about memory leaks, which was happening in C++. Same situation when C++ come. So what was happening? This memory was not put in the free list also and was not accessible also. You remember or no? When we took history of Java and then I highlighted drawbacks of C++. Getting? So I told that when we get a new address, the old is lost. So old is lost, so can I access this memory? No. And is it also put in the free list? No, because you didn't call delete. Unless and until you call delete, it is not put in the free list. So that was a leak, memory leak.
Memory leak.
Clear? Memory leak meaning you are not able to access also, and it is not reutilized. Someone else also cannot utilize. But such problem won't occur. Why? Because no problem, the new address, new reference. I'm not using the word address. Why? Because in Java, direct access to memory is actually not there. Java doesn't support pointer. Direct access to memory is anyway not there. So this reference when come old lost, no problem. But this memory, whenever the garbage collector is scheduled, garbage collector will put this memory in the free list. And if it puts in a free list, that memory is available for reutilization. Someone else can utilize it. Okay? So I hope it is clear. See here, that point only I am trying to convey here. Automatic garbage collection. See, when I am writing emp e equal to new emp. After some time I am writing e equal to new emp. Okay, see here, first statement on the stack and on the heap. First, E is your reference variable. When the first copy got created, new EMP means is it going to create a copy of that employee? And will it allocate memory for its data members? Like if it is having properties like number, name, salary, whatever, joining date, so it will allocate memory for it. On heap, the reference will come in E. But after some time, again a new object is created. New object's reference will come in E. The old is lost, but don't worry. The old lost. Then this memory, will it be a leak? No. Garbage collector, whenever it is scheduled, it will put this memory in the free list. And if it puts in free list, that memory is available for reutilization. I hope it is clear. Agreed or no?
Sir,
Yes,
then
sir.
we can say na that Java is passed by reference value. Then
Pardon, you want to say that in Java?
it means like this. म्हणजे आपण ते म्हणू शकतो ना हे पास बाय रेफरन्स व्हॅल्यूज होऊ शकते. कॉल बाय रेफरन्स होत नाही.
You want to say that in Java there is no concept of pointer.
हा.
That's what I'm saying. Na? We say as if it is a address. But actually here the direct address is not stored. There is something intermediate happening, which I have not told you. In between, some hash tables are maintained. Your Java virtual machine. And what happens is whenever an object is created, getting? Then for that some mathematical calculations are done and it will generate some hash address. There the address is kept and the hash address come in your variable. Means in your variable never the direct memory address come.
Yes.
That object's memory address never come in your variable E.
Reference असेल.
Getting? Therefore we say reference, but actually in that the hash code has come. Means the bucket number in your hash table, which is called as a hash code. And that hash code you can print and see, I'll tell you, but that hash code is not the memory address. You understanding? It is just that bucket number in the hash table. And in the hash table that object's address is kept. So we people never get access to the memory directly. Getting? And therefore in Java you can say that never we get direct access to memory. And as there is no direct access to memory, the concept of pointer only doesn't come into picture. Getting? Okay? So concept is like this. Okay? In the variable only the reference is kept. Or you can say in Java all objects are created with a ref model, not on the value model. Okay? Like if you compare with C++, so in C++ what happens is the object is created on the stack also and heap also. Both place. So here object is only created on stack and its reference is kept in a variable which is on the, its object is created on a heap and its reference is kept in a variable which is on the stack. Okay. Then why it is called as secure language also. Okay. To secure, why? Because it provides the concept of exception handling. You can properly write a try-catch block. Very systematic code you can write. Okay, means you can write a try block, and in that try block, okay, within that try block, you can write the code which may possibly create a problem. Any problem, any code which may possibly create a problem, that you put it in a try block. Now, if problem occur, the control will directly get transferred to the catch block. Getting? Where that object is received, and here you can handle that problem. So very gracefully you can manage that problem. You understanding? Like in other languages like C and C++, if problem occur, the program terminate. Here, if the problem occur, so you can gracefully take the control to the catch block. In that you can handle that problem and then continue with the remaining code, whatever the remaining code. So with this, what you can say, you can write a proper secure code using this exception handling. So exception handling captures various errors, and it even eliminates from the risk of system crash. Getting? Normally in C program, if there is a problem, so it will just stop the code. There only it will abnormally terminate it. Here you have facility of trapping that error. If the problem is, you can trap it. You can systematically transfer the control to catch block. Here you can handle that by giving the proper error message, and then you can continue with the remaining code also. So this way, gracefully you can manage with the problems, and therefore the code becomes secure code. Agreed? See here. We can write a systematic try block, catch block. Now in try block, that code which may possibly create a problem. Any code which will create a problem, that will come in a try block. And if in a try block there is a problem, then control can come to catch block. Here you handle that problem, and then you can continue with the remaining code. So with this, what I'm saying, we can write a proper secure code. Getting? And no pointers. So as there is no pointer, no direct access to memory. And as there is no direct access to memory, it is secure system. Can we create any hazardous situation in the system? Which we can do it using C pointers and C++ pointers. Using C pointer, can I go and damage the interrupt vector table only? Is it possible? Interrupt vector table only can I damage? Normally, whenever any interrupt occur, so to handle that interrupt, there are services OS provide. Interrupt 9 service, interrupt 13 service, interrupt 21 service. So all the services OS give. These are the functions only. They are the OS functions or OS services. And these all services addresses, they will be called as a address. I am talking in address term, proper address. It's a function pointer. Pointer, but function pointer. That function pointers are kept in one table called as a interrupt vector table. Getting? Like this is for interrupt 9, suppose interrupt 13. All there are 255 interrupts. Getting? When 256, 0 to 255. Now suppose in the system interrupt 9 has occurred because you have hit the key. When you press a key, interrupt 9 occurs. Getting? When you access any disk, interrupt 13 occurs. So for everything there are interrupts. For timer there is an interrupt 8. So the moment interrupt occurs of that number, whatever, it will come to that place in the table at that number. It will take the address, go there and run this function, which OS has provided it. Getting? But as this table, you can access it through the pointers, because through pointer you get the access to the memory, and as you get access to the memory, you can come here and damage the address. Means instead of this function address, you are damaging and putting some other function address over there, and in which some rotten code you have written, any hazardous code. Now suppose interrupt 9 occurs, so by it's a traditional way, it will go to 9th place in the table, and donkey work. It is a donkey, it's not intelligent like you people. It will not check whose address it is. Getting? It will just go to 9th place, and there whatever address it gets, it goes there and runs it. But when it goes there and run, this is a rotten code which can create any problem in your system. So through pointers, what you can do, you can access this IVT, you can damage it, you can put new addresses over there. Why? Because pointers give direct access to memory, which will never happen. So in Java, first of all, viruses and all, Java is language not used for developing such thing. It is a language not used for developing viruses and antiviruses. It is not for that purpose. Getting languages like assembly languages, C language, C++, they are used for developing viruses and antiviruses. Clear? So as there is no pointer, no access to memory, and therefore the system is what? Secure. So all these points contribute to its robustness and its secure feature. Getting? So I hope it is clear. Right, guys? So why we should call it as robust, that is clear. So strict, what is done? Compile time checking, strict runtime checking is done. Automatic garbage collection is there. Getting? Proper using try-catch block, you can write a secure code. And no pointers, so no access to the memory directly. And all these points contribute to its robustness and secure feature. Agreed, guys? Yes or no? Clear? At least interact. Okay? ठीक है. Shreyas is asking, sir, one object is created, then afterwards another object is created, then first object value. But it is not happening automatic. No? It was not put automatically into the free list. No? Right? In languages like C++, we were supposed to inform to the system that please put it in the free list. Right? But whereas in language like Java, is it automatically put into the free list? But automatic means, is there someone who is doing that work? And who is that?
Garbage collector.
Garbage collector. I hope you got it. Clear?
Yes.
Now, coming to the next feature, one more feature, and then we will see how to write first Java program, and for that, what all things are needed. That too we'll discuss. Okay, now there are few more features also, but for time being, I have stopped at this only. I'll not take that features because that will be little difficult at this point. At this point, to start with the coding, these 5 features are sufficient. That Java is simple, small, and familiar. Okay, so why we can say like that? So they say that Java is a simplified version of C++. Means language C++ only, but the simplified form of C++ is Java. Getting? You can say like C++ is a superset of C. Always remember, whatever you can do in C, you can do it in C++. Or just remember, every C++ program is ultimately converted into C code. There are tools through which you can see that every C++ program is converted into C. There are tools available, okay, through which we can see that it is converted. So every C++ is a C, but it is having some extra features also. So you can say C++ is a superset of C. Everything in C is there in C++. But Java is neither superset nor subset. Java is neither superset nor subset of these languages. So why? Because what they have done, all the good features of these both languages, whatever good feature like data types, operators, control structures like for loops, while loops, switch case, different data types, different operators, all that things they have carried in Java. But the problem creating features like pointers, okay, then pointer is one thing. Then even like loss of precision was happening. So lot of problem creating features which were there in this. Correct? Or in C++ like multiple inheritance problem. Okay. So all that they have tried to remove it, and remove means keep it with that language only. We are not carrying with Java. We are taking only the good features, and Java has added its new features also. Okay. So as they have created it as a simplified form of C++. We can say it is simple. Small y because unwanted things they have not kept only. All the unwanted things they have deleted. And familiar y because already programmers were knowing which language? C++. So when the programmers are moving to Java, it won't be that difficult because lot of conceptual things are same, lot of syntactic things also, like data types are same, getting? Then the way of writing functions, way of passing parameters, then the syntaxes of your control structures like for loop syntax, while loop syntax, then syntax of switch case, everything they have kept same. So already programmer is familiar with C++. It's very easy to get cope up with Java. Getting or no what I'm trying to say? Okay? See here. You can say like that C and C++ is having features like pointers. It is having features like preprocessors and header files. I hope you have heard this thing. In C program, to add your header files, we use that hash include, which is a pre-processing directive. And pre-processing why we call? Because it is one step before compilation. Before compilation start, it is one step before activity. So it is one more step activity. Getting? The pre-processing concept is not there only in Java. Okay. Then goto statement. Because of goto, you can code mangling can be there. You call it as spaghetti code. Through goto, you can transfer control anywhere. No? This is poor code. See here, for example, I've written a for loop, integer I equal to 0, I less than 10, getting I plus plus, and some code I have written here, which is 100% legal in C++. And here some label I have given and this point. And outside this, I have directly written go to X. Getting? Which in C is 100% valid. When you say go to X, directly the control is transferred here. And it will run this code and then come to I plus plus and I less than 10. So which part it has skipped only? Can you tell me? Go to X I have written. So which part only will get skipped? What do you say, guys?
For
Go
loop
to
statement.
Looping.
yes, make it clear.
Looping.
No, but later it is continuing with the loop. Go to X, it comes here, runs this code, the remaining code, and then comes to I plus plus, then I less than 10, and then it continues. But for the first time, does it skip only this I equal to 0 part, initialization?
Yes, yes.
You understanding or no? The first initialization part only skipped because directly it has jumped here. So that initialization, then this part, for the first time, it has not executed. This whole code, this initialization code, it didn't execute. Directly came here, run this code and directly I plus plus. So is there chance that I is not having initial value only and it is continuing? It is a poor code. Such codes are called as a hazardous code. Such thing will never occur only in Java because Java doesn't support only what goto. So as goto is only not supported, you cannot transfer the control from anywhere to anywhere. Getting na? In Marathi कुठूनही कुठेही jump नाही करू शकत. Clear? So that is goto eliminated. All these features are not there. And obviously when such features are not there, the language will become what? Small. It will become simple. Getting? Even like features of operator overloading. Okay? But these are C++ features, but now some may not know, some people, those who don't know C++, they may not know what is operator overloading. Okay, at appropriate time I'll tell you. Okay, but those who have done Python and all from me, they might be knowing. So operator overloading, multiple inheritance, that diamond problem, you remember or no? I have told you about that diamond problem. There is a parent class, then there are two child class from it, and then again from that, clear? B and C, and from that again a new child class is created, D. Clear? I hope you remember it.
Yes.
Okay. So there what was happening, this A was getting duplicated till D. So that diamond problem will not occur only because multiple inheritance also Java has removed. So all these features Java has removed, and obviously when it is removed, the language will obviously will become what? Small also, and when language is small, obviously it's going to be simple. Getting? And some features like data types, okay, control flow, then operators, all they have carried in Java. Nearly all operators of C++ are there in Java. Same control structures, same if, same for loop, same switch case. Data types also they have tried to keep it same. They might have added something, but all the data types are carried of Java, and therefore it is familiar. Okay, so I hope you got it. So can we ultimately say Java is a simplified version of C++, right? Okay. Now I hope the concept is clear, the basic features are clear. So just to quickly recap, Java is compiled and interpreted. Java is platform independent and portable. Java is object oriented. Java is robust and secure. And Java is simple, small and familiar. Right? Okay. Few more features are there, like Java is multi-threaded and Java is having high performance. So that at this moment we won't talk. We will just quickly start with the programming part. Right? Okay. Now if you want to write programs in Java, you want to develop your Java applications, okay, then you need to have some software which is freeware, which Sun Microsystem has free distributed. You don't have to purchase, or there is no licensing concept. You can download, install it and you can start using it. Correct? So it is freeware, but if you want to develop your applications, right, then you need a Java development kit. Okay. Now what does Java development kit contains, like, right? So Java development kit is providing you with an environment where you can develop your applications and you can execute your application. Correct? So it's a software needed for developing and executing your application, right? If you want to only execute your application, then it is not needed. Means in your machine, someone has already developed only that application I want to run in my machine. It is not compulsory that you need to have JDK. Understand na carefully what I'm saying. JDK will be needed only when you want to develop your application and then test it. You want to execute and see. But if you only want to execute it, then there is no need of development kit. Only Java runtime environment is sufficient. And in every machine, Java runtime environment is already there. Getting? Means this Sun people, how intelligently they have done that with every operating system, that Java runtime environment is shipped. Shipped means it comes along with that OS. So whenever you install OS, JRE is sure going to come. Getting? But JDK doesn't come automatic. Getting? JDK is never available automatic in your system. But runtime environment is always there in your system. And runtime environment is needed for execution. It is not for development. Okay. So JDK provides an environment through which you can develop and you can execute code. So what all things it provides? So one thing it provides you with some tools. Getting, guys? I'm sure you are hearing me carefully. Yeah? Okay. So it will provide you with some tools for developing your program. Tools like your Java compiler. Okay. Like this is not separate in Python like language. It is in one tool only. But in Java it is separate. Compiler is separate, interpreter is separate. So there is one tool called compiler, which will take the Java code and give you a byte code. Then we need an interpreter which will take the bytecode and convert to machine code. We need an applet viewer to run the applets. I hope you remember applets are small Java programs embedded in a HTML, okay, and viewed in the browser. But if you don't have browser to test it, you can test it in this applet viewer. So this applet viewer, interpreter, compiler, then we have a debugger, a profiler, a jar, many tools are there. All these are the tools needed for developing your application. They come with JDK. Agreed, guys? Clear? So JDK is coming with these tools, one thing. And second, it provides you with lot of libraries which are already developed by some people. Those libraries are distributed to you, okay, and you can use them in your program. Clear? Each and every word you are hearing me carefully. Okay, so don't get distracted. So what I'm saying, it provides you with these tools, then it provides you with the libraries also. Okay, we call it as library, but actually Java convention, they call it as Java API. Application Programming Interface. They call it as Java APIs. Simple terms you can remember, APIs means they are a collection of classes kept in a packages. Yesterday I hope I told you about packages concept. So they are organized and kept in packages form. Java is a main package, then there are sub packages, and in that packages there are a lot of classes, IO package, lang package, util package, many package. Every package will have their classes, and all that classes are also distributed to us, and we use it in our program. Getting? So that is also provided in your JDK. And one more important thing it provides, that is the runtime environment. Okay, that runtime environment meaning it is like a platform. It is responsible for memory allocation, garbage collection, allocating the memory, okay, thread scheduling of thread. So all these are actually responsibility of OS, but in case of Java, it is done by that runtime environment. Okay, so pictorially, if I show you, it's like this. Okay, see, you can say this is your JDK, which is containing your Java runtime environment, RE. This Java runtime environment, the same other like .NET if you learn, so they will also have their runtime environment. If you go to Python, it will also have its own runtime environment, whose job is to do allocation and garbage collection and thread scheduling and many more things. And these are the tools. Clear? Tools. So in that tools many are there. Compiler is there, then the debugger, the profiler, interpreter, so many things are there. These are the tools. Okay. Now this tools plus JRE make JDK. Okay. And in JRE you can say there is one more thing called JVM, that is your Java Virtual Machine. Okay. And the APIs, that is the libraries which you use in your program. There are abundant of libraries developed, you understanding, for every activity, and they have packed it in the form of packages and they have given you. So this is the reusable library and the JVM, whose responsibility is translating, very first responsibility, translating bytecode to machine code. Second, it will do the allocation, deallocation. Then it will do thread schedulings. So lot of activities it does. So they both make JRE, and JRE and tools make JDK. But remember, in your system, if you have not installed JDK, then also in every operating system, this JRE will be sure there. And therefore, if someone has given you a ready-made Java executable means you got a bytecode. So someone has already given you a bytecode and you just want to run in your system. So there is no need of JDK. Only JRE is sufficient, which is already there in your machine. So in your machine already there is a JRE. It can run your code, your .class. It will convert it line by line to machine code and give it to the CPU. And when your code is using the library, it will refer that libraries from here. Getting? So that is the reason Java is compiled once and run anywhere. So if you want to run it anywhere, don't worry about it. Clear? If you have this bytecode, you can run on any machine, because every machine will have its runtime environment. Right? Okay. So I hope it is clear. So now we will talk about all this quickly. See here first. So first thing, what comes in your Java development kit? These tools. As I said, like the compiler, the applet viewer, the debugger, the profiler, all come. And second, what comes in Java development kit? Your Java runtime environment. And this JRE is responsible to execute your code. Agreed? Now we will talk about this runtime environment. What is that Java runtime environment? So Java runtime environment is made up of what two things? If you have understood carefully, you will tell me. Means tell me for running the program, who is responsible? JDK or JRE?
JRE.
JRE.
Correct. And for developing your programs, what we need?
JDK.
Tools. Someone told tools. The tools are needed for developing, but the tools come in the JDK. Therefore, we need JDK for development. And for execution, we need JRE. So tools plus JRE makes JDK. Okay, but in your system, if you have not installed JDK, no problem. If some X person, like our Pratik has developed some program in Java, he has compiled and created a bytecode, and then he gave it to me. And now on my machine, I want to run it. Can I directly run it if JDK is not there in my machine? 100% I'll run and show you. If JDK is not there, still I can run, because in my machine, JRE is sure there, 100% JRE is there. And therefore to run that bytecode, this JRE is sufficient to run. I can run it. And if his code is using some library, so will there be any problem, or can it refer the libraries from that JRE?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because in that JRE, all the libraries are also shipped, SHIPPED. Clear? So it is shipped with that libraries also. Okay? So see here, Java runtime environment provides an environment to execute your code. It consists of your virtual machine, which is responsible for converting your Java dot class, that is your Java executable, to the native code. Native code means the underlying machine code which your CPU can understand. And does it only give this for translation, or it gives you some core classes, the class libraries, which are also called Java Software Library, or you call it as Java Application Programming Interface. Getting? And every OS comes with JRE, though if it doesn't come with JDK. Now, some operating systems, while installing, like if you install Unix based OS, any Unix distros if you are installing, like Ubuntu and CentOS and all. So while installation only, if you select all the packages, so in those OS also, JDK also automatically come. You don't have to install. JDK is by default. Like in Fedora and in Red Hat and all, it is sure there. Only the thing is, when you are installing, have you selected all the packages? Custom installation you should do and select all that packages. In that one category is called development tools. If you have selected, automatic JDK also gets installed. But on Windows, you have to put it. Clear? So every OS is coming with that JRE. So let it be Windows, let it be Linux, let it be Mac system, JRE is sure present. Therefore, to run any bytecode, only this much is sufficient. There is no need to have JDK. And when someone else code is running and it needs some library, so that libraries are also present. Getting? Okay? See, only needed when you want to run your Java program. Right? And the third part is your Java virtual machine, which is part of JRE. So the part of JRE is JVM. Is JVM somewhat like operating system only? Is it giving some functionality to your program to run? your program is going to run, and because of JVM your program is running. Getting? So it is very much like your platform. It is very much like your OS. Like normally the functions which OS does, lot of responsibilities JVM does. Getting? Like if there are many threads running, threads means different parts of your program. So scheduling that threads, memory allocation, garbage collection, then the other activity like main activity is converting the bytecode to machine code. All these things JVM does. Getting? So JVM acts like a platform. It interprets line by line the bytecode and converts it into machine code, gives it to the underlying platform for execution, and it is responsible for allocating the memory. It is responsible for garbage collection. It is responsible for scheduling the threads. All these activities your JVM do. And therefore, pictorially, if I show, it is like this. Getting? Your Java development kit is made up of Java runtime environment plus development tool. And Java runtime environment is made up of Java virtual machine plus the libraries. But these libraries are provided in the classes form, but they are organized and kept in a proper packages, a main package Java, then a sub package, and then in that classes are there. Okay, so hope this part is also clear to you guys.
Yes, sir.
Sure? Okay, very good. Okay, so I need confirmation from others as well. I should stop uploading on YouTube, then students will attend. What happens is, like, people know already you're uploading on YouTube, they don't attend you. Because average YouTube view is there, means people are not attending here, they are watching the recordings later. Anyways, okay, good, very good. But there are fixed students, those who are everyday sincere, they are regular. That same list I can see. Very good. Now we will see how to develop the program, and for that, as I said, we need some development tools. Now at this moment I'll not tell you all the tools, only the two important tools first which we need to write the first Java program. And that first two important tools are, one is a Java compiler and another is a Java interpreter. Okay, so I'll tell you about that two things first, and then we will write the program, and then we will gradually start the other elementary concepts. Okay, the first tool is, and I'll show you the installation also. Okay, and if you are not doing on Windows, like I guess all you are from BCS and all background, so your Pune University recommends do it on open source operating system. Getting? So any open source operating system if you have, like Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat, whatever. Getting? So just check whether Java is already there or not. Right? Means is JDK already installed or not? Now you'll say how to check. I'll tell you, don't worry. Clear? What you can do is you start your terminal. Right? I hope you know to start the terminal. Not that basic thing. No? Like 2 years you have done some practicals on the Linux system. Right? So you open a terminal, and on terminal just check javac -- version. Okay. So if it prints the version number over here, like it is OpenJDK 1.8 or whatever, then already JDK is there in your machine. But if not, so I'll give you the commands, don't worry. Okay, and you just tell me, like, if, shall we do it in that open source OS only, or I'll show it on Windows as well. Clear? So that way you can tell me in the chat window. So accordingly we will start our practicals in that way. Okay, so I guess we should do it in open source only, but some are saying Windows. Okay, Sanket is saying Windows. But if you all are from BCS background, so you should get an experience in that only. No issues. I'll show it on Windows, no problem. I'll download the JDK, I'll install that JDK, how to install everything I'll tell you. Okay. Meantime, we'll just talk about today with one tool, that is Java tool. Okay, Java nahi, Javac tool. We call it a Javac or Java compiler. Okay, so next session will be on installation and all. I'll show you from where to download JDK. If not, then I'll give you my JDK to you. You people just install it in your machine. Okay? And then we will start writing program. Initially, we'll do it with a command prompt, and then later I'll show you to use some IDE like Eclipse, okay, or NetBeans, because that two are only recommended in your syllabus. So common one is Eclipse, so we'll use Eclipse. So how to use Eclipse, and in Eclipse how to create programs and run program, that I'll tell you. Now first we'll talk about this tool, Java compiler. Okay? So Java compiler is a tool which takes the Java source file, checks if there are syntax semantic errors in it. If there, along with the line number it will tell you, and no, then it will convert your Java source file into a Java executable file, which will be a .class file. Everything practically I'll show you. I'll show you in the directory how that .class is created. Okay, so .class is called as a bytecode file or a Java executable file. So Javac, then your file name, whatever that file name is of your source program, with the extension .java. So every Java program is to be saved with the extension .java. File name up to you. What file name you want to give, you can give. Okay? Any file name you can give. Right? But remember, many people think whatever file name you have given, with the same name, you'll get a .class. Getting, guys? Many have, because many think like whatever is the source file name, the same will be the .class. Please remember, it's not like that. Whatever file name you give to the .java, not necessarily your .class will be with the same name. Then you'll say, then what is the name of the .class? It is the name of your class which you have typed inside it. See, Javac file name.java. This is a file. Is it going to be one source file? Yes or no? Whose name is file name, or for example, I'll keep this as first, suppose. Lot of basic things are there, and these are all asked in interviews. Getting to first dot Java. So now you have created a file, okay, with the name first dot Java. So we think as if when this file is compiled, you'll get first dot class. So the class name is not depending on the source file name. It is depending on the class which you have typed inside it. Okay, so in one source file you can type any number of classes. Like say here I've written class X. Okay, then inside that there is data, there are methods. I've created one more class, class Y. In that also there are data, there is method. Okay, third class I have created. Clear? Don't take literal meaning of third class. Clear? Class number 3. Clear? So what I'm saying, class X, class Y, class Z. These are the 3 classes typed in this one source file. And what is the name of that source file? First.java. Now you gave that first.java to Javac. It has checked the syntaxes, no problem. It has converted it to bytecode. But the bytecode file is with this name. Means in the directory, you'll see 3 class files. X.class, Y.class, Z.class. You understanding or no? Means in the directory, the bytecode file or the Java executable file, that is the .class file, name depends on the class name, not on the source file name. Getting? But many times what happens is, you people, when you are very first Java programmers, like now just you have started doing, so what you do, you give the file name, and inside that also you type the class with the same name. Inside you type a class also with the name first. Getting? And when you compile, so in the directory also you get a file with the name first.class. So you start assuming like that. Means you make your conclusion that the name of the dot class is same as the name of the source file. Why in this context you got first.class? Because the class name also you gave first. Getting? But suppose first.java you wrote, but inside that you have typed three classes, X class, Y class, Z class. You compiled it and check in the directory. You will not see first.class. You will see X.class, Y.class, Z.class. You understanding or no, guys? Clear? So that is the rule. So dot class name depends on the name of class. It doesn't depend on the name of
File.
that is your source file. See, not only file, source file. She is hearing me very carefully. Not only file, source file name. It's not depending on the source file. It is depending on the class name. And with this, can you conclude that in one source file, can you have multiple classes?
Yes.
Yes. And as many classes, that many dot class in the directory. So in the directory, how many dot class you will see? As many classes are there. Even for a nested class also. Okay, see here, like if you have created a class within a class, that is possible in Java. It's called as a nested class or inner class. Inner class mechanism is there. Java allows you to create one class inside another. Get it? Here there is class A. Now, this class A and that class A is different, remember. This is an inner class of X and this is normal class. It is outside that. Now in directory, you will see three class files. One will be x.class, another will be x$a.class, and third will be a.class. Getting? Lot basic things are there. Many may think like when he'll write first Java program. Whereas some people might have written first Java program in the first lecture only. We have reached to fourth lecture. Yet we have not written the first Java program. Why? Because these all are very elementary thing, basic thing. This is going to create your foundation. Getting? All these are interview questions. They check whether you are clear with these basic concepts or not. So here x.class for this class. Inner class also will have a separate file. But the naming convention is like that. The outer file, outer class name, $inner class. Now some may ask if there is a class within that class. Will it 100% it will have. Getting? Inside that also, if you have class, suppose B. Getting? So this class is also going to have a dot class. Getting? But there will be two times $x, $a, $b dot class. Okay? So this one part is clear to you. So what is this Javac tool doing? You got it. So Javac tool is taking your Java source file, checking for the syntaxes. If there are, it will syntax errors. If there are, it will tell you along with the line number. No, then it will convert it into a Java executable, that is a bytecode. And the name of your bytecode file is not depending on the source file name, it depends on the class name. As many classes you have typed in that source file, that many dot class. Getting? As many classes in that source file, that many dot class. Okay? Now, one rule is there in Java that when you have to give the name of the class and the file name as same, that much I'll tell you. Meaning, when you will give, like this is class first. Okay? Now, if suppose you make that class as public. Now just remember, like many may not know what is that public access specifier. Now those who know C++, for them it is okay. Okay? But those who don't know, don't worry. Clear? Everything is having a solution. Please remember, always remember, in life for every problem there is a solution. Getting? Don't be panic. Clear? Always find for the solutions. See, there are different paths. Possible one path may lead to some failure, but just come back and search for the another path. Like, clear? So what I'm saying is, don't worry, we will learn about this. Now just remember what Java says in your source file. If suppose any class is public, then you have to compulsory give that class name and the file name same. Getting? Means when the file name has to be same as the class name if the class is public. Getting? Only that time. But if it is not public, then is it mandatory to give the file name and the class name same?
No.
No. Okay, so Java only says if the class is public, then it is compulsory to give the file name and the class name same.
Sir,
Okay? Yes, you can ask me.
आपण
हा,
जर पब्लिक नाही लिहिलं तरी डायनॅमिकली पब्लिकच होतं ना ते.
No. Clear? Don't confuse. Okay? It is not public. Correct? It is by default. Getting? In Java, clear? If you have little bit knowledge, okay, but don't confuse. In Java, there are 4 levels. Okay, so I'll come to it. Don't confuse now. Okay, but it is not by default public. Please remember, it is by default. And Java is having 4 levels. One, when you don't write keyword, when no keyword is given, it is by default. Default is not a keyword, I'm saying. Take the literal meaning of that word in English. Default means when you don't give anything. So that is one level. There is another level called private, another level called protected, and another level called public. Whereas in C++ we have only 3 levels. And that's the reason he's saying by default it will become public only. So not like that. It is default, private, protected, public. And all 4 levels have their different access privilege. Their privileges are different. Getting? So in language like C++ we have only 3. Getting? Here there are 4. Where for 4th, this one, no keyword. Keyword is not there. When you don't write anything, it is default. So we will discuss. Please don't worry. Clear? When we'll come to the appropriate topic, we'll come to know. Now just remember, if you would have given it as public, then the file name and the class name has to be same. Clear, guys? Clear? So with this, if I ask you one true false statement, just answer it. Okay? That one source file can have more than one public classes. One source file can have more than one public class. What do you say? Okay? Why do you think like that? False. You're saying false. Huh.
So
Yes.
class name is to be same.
Yes, very good. Yes, and at a time, can I give 2 names to one source file only? No. So she told right, very, very proper. She told that because the class is public, you have to give the class name and the file name, same because it is public. If it is not public, no compulsion. Maybe like, I'm not offensive, not because some teachers, they say like it is compulsory only. The file name and the class name has to be same. Getting? So please understand it. Java doesn't put a compulsion that file name and class name same. When it is to be same, it is when it is public. So now suppose you have given 2 classes public. So you have to give this name to the file. So can you give 2 names to one file only? No. Means are we supposed to put it in 2 separate files? No? Yes or no, guys? This I have to put in a separate file, first.java, and this I have to put in a separate file called x.java. Because how come I can give 2 names to one file? Therefore, if I say every source file can have at the most one public class, at most one public class. Is it true or false? At most. At most means maximum. There is no public class is okay, or it is having one public class is okay. So what do you say? Is it true?
True.
Yes. Clear? So in every source file, how many maximum public classes can be there? At the most one. Okay? Okay? It is clear to you. Now some more things we will discuss in the next session, no doubt. And then we will see the second tool, that is Java tool, and then I'll show you how to type it, how to run it. First simple program we'll write for Hello World, which will just display Hello World. But each and every part of that program I'll tell you. Don't worry. The entry point, that is main, then how we pass parameters to main, then how to display Hello World on monitor. Like in C we do it by printf, in C++ by cout, in PHP by echo. So same way, like in Python it is by print. So what is used here? So here there is system.out.print. So what is that system? What is that out? What is that print? Everything in detail I'll explain. Don't worry for that. Like, okay. So hope everything is clear. So now for today's session, we will take a pause over here, and then in the next session we'll continue with